All right, so here's what we're going to do today. Since first period got all of this information, I'm just going to run back through it. It'll be kind of like a review for you guys, second time hearing it. Second and fourth period, you will have never heard some of this information, so understand that you may not be as comfortable with it as first period is, but it's the same information. You're just getting it today rather than when they got it on Tuesday. So remember that on Tuesday, when we are factoring when A equals 1. So when A equals 1, we are able to, if C is positive and the signs are alike, they have the same sign as B. Remember, this is also when we add our factors. If C is negative, our signs will be different and the larger number will have the same sign as B. And remember, this is when we subtract our factors, and we will go into that in just a second after I erase this glitch. Subtract. So number one, now you may have seen these before and you may be able to copy them off your notes, but I suggest you working them with me, going through the thought process so that we remember what to do. All right, C is positive, so I'm looking for factors of 10 that add up to 7. Factors of 10 that add up to 7. So we're going to use 5 and 2. Since C is positive, both of my factors will have the same sign and they will match the sign of B. So x plus 5 and x plus 2. Next one, C is positive. So I'm looking for factors of 18 that add up to 9. We're going to use 6 and 3. Since C is positive, my factors have the same sign and they match the sign of B. So x plus 6 and x plus 3. Next one, C is still positive, so factors of 20 that add up to 12. I'm going to use 10 and 2. Both factors have to have the same sign, but this time they have to be negative because they must match B. So x minus 10 and x minus 2. Next one, C is positive. So factors of 18 that add up to 11. 9 and 2. Since C is positive, they're going to have the same sign and they're going to match the sign of B. So x minus 9, x minus 2. Next one. C is now negative. So factors of 24 that subtract to get 10. Factors of 24 that subtract to get 10. 12 and 2. Since C is negative, they will have different signs, and the larger number gets the sign of B. So 12 gets the positive and 2 gets the negative. Next one, C is negative, so factors of 6 that subtract to get 5. 6 and 1. Since C is negative, they will have different signs. The larger value gets the matching sign of B. So x plus 6, x minus 1. Next one, C is still negative. So factors of 8 that subtract to get 2. 4 and 2. This time, my larger value gets a negative. So x minus 4, x plus 2. Factors of 30 that subtract to get 7. 10 and 3. Larger value gets the sign of B, so x minus 10, x plus 3. All right, so first period, you've heard this before. This is when we have A is greater than 1. Second and fourth period, you have never had this before, so this is going to be new. If A is greater than 1, you still want to make sure that it's in standard form, and you want to take out GCF if possible. The difference here is we're now going to multiply A to C. And then what are the factors of this product that add up or subtract to get B? Okay, so if we look at this here, I'm just going to go over that step right now. If we look at this, my A is greater than 1. So I have to make sure it's in standard form. We're good. I have to make sure I can't factor anything out. I'm good. Now I'm going to multiply A and C. So 10 times 3 is 30. Okay. And then what factors of 30 add up to 17? And I'm adding because my C value is positive. Well, my two values that add up to 17 are going to be 15 and 2. So I'm going to use 15 and 2. Okay. Now, once I've done this, my next step says the B term is split up into these two terms. So 17 is going to be split up into these two terms. So essentially, I'm going to uncombine like terms. Okay? So instead of having 17x in the middle, notice I now am going to have 2x and 15x. Now, in all honesty, it does not matter in what order you put those two terms. I usually tell people to make a decision that's easiest for you. In this case, now that they have 4 terms in their polynomial, they're going to factor by grouping. Okay, so they are going to group these two and these two, and then they are going to factor like we did on Monday. So they said 2x was a common term here. They were left with 5x plus 1. And they factored out a 3 here, and they were left with 5x plus 1. Now we have a 5x plus 1 in common. We can factor that out, and we're left with 5x plus 1 and 2x plus 3. It does not matter what order you put these two in right here. It doesn't matter. You will still get the same factors if factored correctly. Let's try one. 21x squared plus 20x plus 4. It's in standard form, and I cannot factor anything out. So first step is to multiply 21 and 4. Well, 21 times 4 is 84. Now, my same rules apply. Since C is positive, what factors of 84 add up to 20? The factors of 84 that add up to 20 are going to be 6 and 14. So I'm going to rewrite my problem, but instead of writing 20x, I'm going to write 6x plus 14x, or 14x plus 6x. It does not matter. So 21x squared plus 6x plus 14x plus 4. Now I have a 4-term polynomial, so I'm going to factor by grouping. This first group, I can factor out a 3x, and I'm left with 7x plus 2. In my next group, I can factor out a 2, and I'm left with 7x plus 2. Now I can factor that more. They both have a 7x plus 2 in common, and I'm left with 3x plus 2. And now I am done. Let's Try another one. 12x squared plus 23x plus 10. It's in standard form. I cannot factor anything out like a GCF, so I have to go with my a is greater than 1 steps. So, where's my pen? All right, let me make it back red. All right, I'm going to multiply 12 and 10, which gives me 120. C is positive, so what factors of 120 add up to 30? I'm sorry, add up to 23. What factors of 120 add up to 23? So the factors that add up to 23 are going to be 15 and 8. So instead of writing plus 23x, I'm going to write plus 15x plus 8x. So I'm going to rewrite 12x squared plus 15x plus 8x plus 10. Notice all I'm doing is I am uncombining like terms. Now I have a polynomial with 4 terms. I'm going to group and factor. I can take out a 3x, and I'm left with 4x plus 5. I can take out a 2, and I'm left with 4x plus 5. My two terms have 4x plus 5 in common. I can factor out a 4x plus 5, and I'm left with 3x, uh-oh, missed a parenthesis, plus 2. Next one. 3x squared minus 10xy minus 8y squared. Here's what happens when you have multiple variables. Just don't worry about the variables. We'll deal with the y in just a minute. It's not very difficult. Only dealing with coefficients. Okay? So a is greater than 1. So maybe let me make my pen red. 3 times 8 is 24. Now c is negative. So what factors of 24 subtract to get 10? Factors of 24 that subtract to get 10. 12 and 2. Okay? So I still have to follow the rules. When c is negative, the larger value gets the sign of b. So my 12 is going to get a negative. All right, so I'm going to rewrite 3x squared. And instead of writing a 10xy, I'm going to write it as a 12xy and a 2xy. But the 12 gets the negative. So minus 12xy plus 2xy minus 8y squared. I just undid my like terms. And now I can group because I have a 4-term polynomial, and I can factor out a 3x, and I'm left with x minus 4y. Over here I can factor out a 2y, and I'm left with x minus 4y. My common term again is x minus 4y, and I'm left with 3x plus 2y. Next one. 10x squared minus 11x minus 6. It's in standard form. I cannot take out a GCF, so I'm going to go ahead with my steps. 10 times 6 is 60. C is negative. So factors of 60 that subtract to get 11. Factors of 60 that subtract to get 11. 15 and 4. And since B is negative, the 15 will get the negative. 10x squared minus 15x plus 4x minus 6. And now that I have a 4-term polynomial, I can group and factor. I'm going to take out a 5x, and I'm left with 2x minus 3. This one I'm also going to take out a 2, and I'm left with 2x minus 3. They have a 2x minus 3 in common, and I'm left with a 5x plus 2. All right, it's in standard form. I cannot take out a GCF, so I have to go with my rules. 6 times 10 is 60. But C is positive, so factors of 60 that add up to 19. Factors of 60 that add up to 19, I'm going to use 15 and 4. C is positive, so both signs must be the same and they must match sign of B. So 6x squared minus 15x minus 4x plus 10. I can group and factor. Remember, since this 4 right here is a negative, I have to take out a negative 2. Oops, this should be a 2 also. Sorry. All right, so here's what we've done so far. Making sure it's in standard form. Look for a greatest common factor. This is what you did Thursday and Friday when I was gone. If the leading coefficient is negative, you must factor out a negative. Okay? If you have 3 terms, use your tricks. If you have 3 terms again, use your tricks. If you have 4 terms, you have to factor by grouping. Okay? And sometimes, guys, some polynomials just won't factor, and that's okay. All right, negative 3x cubed plus 27x squared minus 60. I can factor out a negative 3x. I'm left with an x squared minus 9x plus 20. All right, this trinomial right in here has a equals 1, so I'm looking for factors of 20 that add up to 9. Factors of 20 that add up to 9. Well, that's 5 and 4. So x minus 5, x minus 4. And it is factored completely. Next one, negative 3x squared plus 9x minus 30. I notice they all have a 3 in common, and I have to take this negative out. So negative 3, x squared, oopsies, minus 3, minus 3x plus 10. All right, factors of 10 that add up to 3. 10 and 1 doesn't work. 5 and 2 doesn't work. So this one right here is factored completely. You cannot factor that anymore. 12x cubed plus 22x squared plus 8x. Not only can I factor out an 8, I can also factor out a 2. So 2x, 6x squared plus 11x plus 4. All right, here's where life gets crazy. This trinomial, a is greater than 1, so I have to use a times c. But you cannot forget about this at the end. Don't forget that 2x at the very end. So 6 times 4 is 24. Since c is positive, factors of 24 that add up to 11. 8 and 3. So I have 6x squared plus 8x plus 3x plus 4. I'm going to group these. I'm going to factor. Nothing can be factored out of that one, so I write my 1 there just for reference. But don't forget that 2x, guys. Got to bring it down. And it's factored. Next one. 2x cubed minus 8x squared plus 3x minus 12. I can't factor anything out of it. And it has 4 terms, so I'm going to go with grouping. I'm going to take out a 2x squared. I'm left with x minus 4. I'm going to take out a 3, and I'm left with x minus 4. X minus 4 and 2x squared plus 3. All right. Don't worry about these double variables. Don't let them freak you out. A is 1. So I'm looking for factors of 21 that subtract, since C is negative, subtract to get 4. Factors of 21 that subtract to get 4. I'm going to use 7 and 3. And the larger value gets the negative. So this will be x minus 7. Here's where your extra variable comes into play. Just tack it on the end. And x plus 3y. Tack it on the end. All right. Problem with this one is that it needs to be in standard form, so we're going to have to rearrange it. 7x squared plus 37x plus 10. All right, I got to multiply a and c together, and that is 70. Factors of 70 that add up to 37. Ooh, 35 and 2. So I have 7x squared plus 35x, oopsies, x plus 2x plus 10. And now I'm going to group and factor. I'm going to pull a 7x to the left side. I'm left with x plus 5. Factor out a 2, and I'm left with x plus 5. And now I have x plus 5 and 7x plus 2. All right, last one. The length of Jana's cornfield was 3 times the width. Jana increased the length and reduced the width so that the area of the new field was 3w squared minus w minus 2 square yards. By how much did Jana increase the length and decrease the width? All right, so here's her original field. And then the original field was the lighter brown, and the new field is this darker brown. So I know my original width was w, and my original length was 3w. I know my new area is this. And I'm trying to figure out how much we increased the length and decreased the width. So I need to factor the area. So let's see, 3w squared minus w minus 2. All right, I need to factor this because I've got to get the new dimensions. So 3 times 2 is 6. All right, C is negative, so factors of 6, that's subtract to get 1. Well, that's going to be 3 and 2. Oh, I'll just... Bigger sign gets the sign of B. So 3w squared minus 3w plus 2w minus 2. I'm going to group. I'm going to factor out a 3w, and I'm left with w minus 1 plus 2, w minus 1. So now I'm left with w minus 1 and 3w plus 2. So now what I need to do is I need to look for similarities. Well, I see a 3w here, and I see a 3w here. So that means I took my length and I increased it by 2. So my length increased by 2. My width, w, if I look right here, I decreased my width by 1. And all I was looking for there was similarities in what I knew about the original field and what I found about my new field. Your homework tonight is a handout called Factoring So Far.